Welcome, everyone, to Eagles Power Hour, your Eastern Washington affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, Patrick Frakes, and today we are talking hoops. We have 3 games to preview, 6 games actually to preview, including the women's games. And so we're going to do this slightly different than normal. Usually I kind of bounce back and forth between the women's and the men's game, go by school, by game, by matchup. But today we're going to go all 3 men's games at the first half, all 3 women's games at the second half. Try to make it simple on my part because it's a lot of games to go through. So if I stay in men's basketball mode the whole way through the first half, it makes everything easier. Um, let's just get right into it. We are previewing these 3 games. We have Montana at home, Montana State at home Saturday, and then Monday night we're playing at Sacramento State. This is a big 3 games here. You win this one versus Montana. I believe we clinch the regular season conference title, and man, how insanely sweet would it be to clinch a regular season basketball title over the Grizz on your home court? Oh, it would be amazing. I would love it. And my quote I said on Twitter was, "Everything happens for a reason. There's a reason we lost to Northern Arizona and Weber State. It was to give us the opportunity to beat Montana, to clinch a ring in the Big Sky, and that." Oh, I'm so excited for this game on Thursday. I'm gonna try and drive up. Everybody else should as well. But to preview this Montana team, Montana is right now tied for second. They're a really good team that is probably the hottest team in the Big Sky right now, honestly. They have the longest win streak going on. They're coming off of a 3-game win streak, and they've had kind of a weird season this year. So, of course, they're good, but they've had some weird stretches where they look insanely good and then they look pretty bad. And an example of this is this stretch here. I'm on their website for the audio listeners, but um, they played Weber State at home and just absolutely torched them, 77-62. Beat their butts in January, the end of January, dominated Weber State, and then they went on a 3-game stretch here where they got blown out by Portland State, only scored 46 points, got beat by almost 30 points. They played Sac State, who at the time was in last place in the conference, and got barely escaped that one on the road down there in Sacramento, and barely survived this one. And then Idaho came to town and almost beat them. They won both the Sac State and Idaho game by 3 points. And really, most of those games they were getting beat by both those teams. They came back in the end. A win's a win, but they looked pretty shaky in this 3-game stretch. And then they hosted Eastern Washington and got beat pretty dominantly, a 13-point loss. And then all of a sudden they go for 94 points against NAU. And NAU is not a good team, but 94 and 66 down there in Flagstaff, that's tough to do, scoring 94 points. So the point being, they're a very up and down kind of team that I said this in the last preview of Montana is they can win any game by 20, and they can lose to any team by 20, and that kind of has been true of most of their season. Lose to Northern Colorado by 16, and then you beat Montana State by what is that, 19? Like they such an up and down season for them, and right now it looks like they're a little bit on the up. They beat Montana State pretty soundly on the 17th of February, and then they beat Sac State again in kind of a close, weird one, but Sac State's been like that all year, just weird. And then they beat Portland State at home, 82-73 last Saturday. So they're coming into this game with some momentum, and they're not necessarily like some horrible teams. They don't necessarily need to be the hottest team in the world to be able to beat a team like Eastern Washington. But the fact that they do have a little bit of momentum going for them is a bit concerning if you're an Eastern Washington fan. Um, you know, I'm gonna transition here. They are, excuse me, in these last 3 games. Sorry, I had a little bit of a brain fart there. In these last 3 games, their leading scorer, Annan Moody, has been excellent. He's been averaging 18 points a game, and as a team they've been shooting right around 45 to 50% from the field, and then 30 to 40% from three. And so they're a good team. Um, sh- uh, gonna share a screen for the video listeners, but they're more of an offensive first team. They're top three, top four in most offensive categories. In total offense, they're third, and they're fourth in total field goal percentage. But then you look at the defensive side of things, and they're sixth in total defense against, and fifth in opponent field goal percentage. They're not necessarily the greatest team defensively. They're third place in 3-point field goal percentage, but they're all the way down there at ninth place in opponent field goal percentage from three, and part of that's kind of due to their um, guard heavy nature, I think. But if you look at this, they're second in the conference in 3-point field goals made. They're a team that can really shoot this thing, and they're that's kind of it seems consistent with the beat any team one night and lose any team one night, because it's just kind of dependent on if the shots are falling for them, and that's kind of what it's been. Really what it's been all year for Montana. They're the only team really close to Eastern Washington and Northern Colorado in terms of. I guess it's not. It's pretty close on the top of the leaderboard here, but um, you know, transitioning more into the players. Their leading scorer right now is Annan Moody. He's 10th in the conference in scoring. He's a very good shooter off the dribble. He's a guard. Um, He's a guy that shoots pretty efficiently, 46%. He's averaging 14 points on and 3 rebounds, 2 assists so far this year. He's kind of their go-to scorer right now. He's usually the guy that brings the ball up the court, and he's a guy that will rise up and take those kind of tempo, feeling it shots like a guy like Cedric Coward or Kyman will for Eastern Washington. He's really good off the dribble, and he's a dangerous shooter for sure. He shoots 37% from three. He's the leader in 3-point shots for Montana. He's one of the top. I think he's like fourth in 3-point attempts per game. Or 3-pointers made, one of the two in the conference. A guy that dangerous shooter. And then you got Deshaun Thomas. He's kind of their stretch four-ish that plays some good defense, a little bit of 3 and D, but he's able to score relatively efficiency inside as well. He's eighth in the conference in block shots, something to note. He's averaging 14 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists on about 48% shooting, and he also averages a block per game, being a guy that's good defender. Brandon Whitney, he's kind of their not Ellis Magnuson, but a little bit different. He's kind of a pass first guard that's a good slasher and could score somewhat efficiently inside. He's shooting 53% right now, pretty efficient. And he doesn't really shoot threes super often, but when he does, he makes them. 47% 3-point shooter, 8 for 17 on the season in conference so far. He's third in the conference in assists. He's just one spot ahead of Ellis Magnuson. Like I said, solid defender. He's averaging 13 points, 3 rebounds, and 5 assists a game. Very solid player for them. He plays a lot of minutes for them as well. Then we got Sawyer, Trajan Sawyer. He's more of a true inside scorer. He's very efficient inside. He's shooting 60% on the season, if I remember. Yeah, 60% on the season. He's hucked up a couple threes as well, but not anything outstanding. He's only shot 11 of them all year in the conference play. Made 45% of those, which is impressive for a big guy. But he's averaging 10 points, 3 rebounds on 60% shooting. Very efficient inside guy. Solid player. Josh Vasquez for them. He's kind of their 3 and D guard a little bit, sort of. He's mainly just a 3-point shooter on offense, and he's very good at that. He's a 41% 3-point shooter, a 42% overall shooter. He's averaging 9 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist per game. He also has a steal per game, and like I said, plays solid perimeter defense. He's a tough matchup for most guards in this league. And then you have Laulu Oki or Oak. I can never remember how to pronounce his name. He is kind of their hustle guy. They're maybe not as offensively adept as like a Casey Jones for Eastern, but he's a hustle guy. He's a really good rebounder, really good defender. He's one of their leaders in block shots, just behind Deshaun Thomas. He's sixth in the conference in rebounding, averaging about 7 rebounds a game. Like I said, good rebounder, good defensive player, 5 points a game, about a steal and a block per game. Just really good, solid player. That's kind of their main contributors. Jackson Knapp also gets a decent amount of playing time. He's a forward off the bench, a young forward off the bench for them, but he doesn't really contribute scoring wise as often as some of the other guys. He's averaging, just shy of 4 points a game. And I'll kind of transition from their players to sort of their style. Like I kind of said, they're more of a 3 point oriented team. They kind of are an inside out team, but they feel more like a guard oriented team, even though they have a guy like Deshaun Thomas who's been really good for them the last few games. He scored 20 in 2 of their last 3 games. He scored 20 versus Montana State and Portland State. So it'll be an interesting matchup down low, but most of their scoring comes from guards. Um, when you look at their top five, 3 of them are guards, 2 of them are forwards, and one of those forwards is more of kind of an outside first, not necessarily outside first, but a forward that likes to shoot the three. So they're a team that a lot of their scoring comes from outside, and I don't know how reliable their scoring inside really comes. A guy like Tijon Sawyer can score pretty reliably inside, but he's kind of their only go-to. Give him the ball in the post, and he'll be able to get you a bucket every once in a while. Like he's really the only go-to guy inside, and so it makes me wonder um, what the adjustment defensively will be for Eastern Washington if they're still going to put that emphasis on the inside defending the paint and off and on zone defenses that they like to do versus a lot of teams versus a Montana team. I know in the last game they gave Montana some zone that they really haven't seen this year, being a really good 3 point shooting team, and it gave them a lot of problems when they were trying to run their offense just because they couldn't really get any open looks because they're not used to not they're used to running their offenses against main defenses for the most part. And so, you know, it, it was interesting to see the last matchup, and I wonder how we're going to adjust now with a guy like Deshaun Thomas, who's been better both inside and out this last couple of games. So that'll definitely be an interesting matchup. Kind of gonna hit on a few keys to the game here. Uh, we have to be efficient, as always. Eastern has to play Eagle basketball. Got to take care of the ball. You got to shoot right around 40 to 50%. You got to hit your threes because, the SAG is going to be back. Like, there's almost no shot. This is kind of an interesting matchup thing, in my opinion, is what's Montana going to do defensively with their SAG defender? I'm curious because typically at any time they'll have 3 guards on the floor who are all 6 to 6'3" in size, really small. And so I wonder what they're going to do if they can do the sag, because I don't know how much sagging a guy like Enan Moody or a guard like that will really help them uh, in terms of causing problems for Eastern Washington's offense, as well as being at home. It's very very nice to be at home knowing that our guys can shoot at home very pretty efficiently. Typically, they've been safe for about 80 points a game at home, which is nuts. But 80 points on 45 to 50% shooting has been kind of the status quo offensively in Reese Court this year for Eastern Washington. So I like our matchup there. I like our matchup on the offensive end. I like that they're not a particularly strong defensive team. And I really think if we can knock down those outside shots, it'll throw them for all sorts of problems, and it'll open up the inside. And I really have confidence that this Eagle offense will be able to get things going this week. Where I'm a little bit concerned is kind of the defensive end. How are we going to guard their guards? I don't know if we have the speed necessarily on the perimeter to kind of keep up with those smaller, shiftier guys. And like we do, but that is something that I think could potentially go Montana's way matchup wise. Even though I think a lot of this game matches up well for Eastern Washington. Um, uh, Hitting more on kind of the takeaways here, but For Eastern Washington to win this game, they have to be efficient, like I was hitting on earlier, and I'm kind of repeating it now because it's really important. Two, we need our sag guys, the guys that get sagged off of, aka Ellis Magnuson, Sebastian Hartman, and Luan Watts. They need to make Montana pay at least once because I am almost certain that they're going to run that. They're always a well-coached team. They're going to run that defense because it's clearly worked pretty well. I mean, they scored their points versus Idaho State and Northern Colorado, but we saw it work really, really well versus Northern Arizona. They're going to have to adjust if Eastern could shoot from outside, but if Eastern can't shoot from outside, they're going to run that all day. So we need our sack defenders. They don't need to be go-to scorers. They just need to knock down one or two, and then instantly that brings that defender out. That's exactly what happened when Ellis he hit a one jumper from outside, and then Luan Watts hit a couple of threes, and then Hartman hit a three. It brought that sack defender out just a step or two, gave us the space we needed behind those guys to get Price inside, to get Coward a one-on-one inside, and that's all we needed there. Uh, I really think we need to be able to take advantage of their guard heavy lineup. And, like I said, they like to put three guards on the floor at once. We need to be able to take advantage of that inside, get our guys matched up, get a Coward one-on-one with a 6-foot guard down on the block, like he was able to take advantage of at that Northern Colorado game in the second half after we made the sag pay. We got to rebound the basketball at a high clip. Eastern has a pretty big advantage on the rebound numbers side of things. We saw versus NAU. Hey, any given night, a team can get up and rebound the ball and get lucky, but Eastern Washington by far is the better rebounding team by a number of spots. I believe Eastern is like 4 or 5 spots ahead of Montana in terms of rebounding. Overall rebounding margin in the Big Sky this year. So that's definitely got to be something. We got to control the ball, play Eagle basketball, as we like to say. Montana, we have to force Montana to shoot a pretty low percentage because they have scorers. They have guys that are talented or gonna hit shots. A Vasquez, a Moody, and a Sawyer is gonna score inside. A Thomas is gonna knock down a few shots as well. And so I think a big key in this one is get them to shoot a lower percentage than normal. Like as a team, they're shooting right around 45 to 50%. They're a very efficient team in terms of Big Sky play. I'm gonna look at that number really quick because I'm kind of interested. They're shooting 47% on the year. Pretty efficient team. That's fourth in the Big Sky, which is nuts that a number that high is only fourth in the Big Sky. But they're efficient team, and I think if we can slow down that efficiency, it kind of throws them for a little bit of a loop because they're a team that shoots the ball a lot. And if we could slow down that outside shot efficiency, I think we got a pretty good chance at being able to outscore these guys in this one. Because, like I said, they have their playmakers and they're going to be able to make a couple shots. Moody's probably going to make one or two shots that you're like, how the did he make that? And that's just how Moody is. We just got to force them to slow that person to shoot a low percentage and to slow down that offense enough. I really like our chances at home with how we can shoot the ball in Reese. I'm really hoping for a big night from one of our big guys, either a Price or an Eric Strupp. I'd love to see, knock down a couple threes, see Price take over inside, maybe even Eric Strupp, shoot the ball a little bit more efficiently, like a guy like John was hoping for on Twitter. So, I would really like to see an Eric Strupp uh, efficiency efficient Eric Strip night, but I think getting the big guys going outside would really open up a lot of opportunities just because it would bring a guy like Sawyer, bring a guy like Oak, and bring a guy like Thomas out to the perimeter to guard those guys and allow those backdoor opportunities from a guy like Watts and those lobs and stuff like that. Allow those opportunities to happen. And then kind of the final one that I'm going to hit on, I would love to see Coward have a day because I don't know if they have someone on their team that really matches up excellent with him. Oak is kind of their guy that would mm, potentially guard Coward. I cannot remember who guarded him last time. Last time these two teams matched up, but I I don't know if Oak's the best comparison and the best matchup for Coward. I really think especially if we can make them pay on the SAG at home. if Coward can get those one-on-ones on the block again, he's going to be able to score those things because he's been able to knock those down efficiently all year. And so I'm really hoping to see Coward get his one-on-one posts up in the post with the guard, just because of how Eastern's length allows those matchups to happen and allow him to score a lot of points in this one. Um, I think that's all I got for the Montana preview. Here comes the Montana State preview. Hold up, I forgot to hit on the last Eastern Washington and Montana matchup from earlier this year. I'll hit on that really quick. Eastern won this one 78-65. Kyman had a very nice night. Coward had 16 points. Casey Jones had 16 points, 12 of which coming from the line. This one, we kind of started off a little slow shooting wise, and then it picked up. Played good defense all night, held them to just 65 points. They only shot 34%, which is kind of what I was saying. Like, this is what we need to do to win this game, is just slow them down, both from three and from just the field in general. And they only turn the ball over 4 times. Like, I don't think making them turn the ball over is necessarily going to be a huge point of emphasis. I think mainly we just need to force them to not be able to shoot super efficiently. Also, get out to this game, guys. Like, this is the chance to win a regular season title against the Grizz at your home court. It's just awesome. I'm trying to make my way there because it should be a really, really fun one, and I hope to see people there. But yeah, should be a really fun matchup. Now we will move on to the Montana State segment. So next up, we got the men's matchup with Montana State, and Montana State has been kind of had a weird season this year. Obviously, they lost Coach Sprinkle, I believe it was, to Utah State, and so they lost a lot of pieces, but they still have some there. A few guys came over with Coach Matt Logie from Point Loma, but they've had kind of a weird year. Sometimes they go on these hot streaks where they look amazing, and then sometimes they just look horrible. And right now they're kind of in a pretty bad a streak of games right now. They have lost 5 of their last 6 games since beating Eastern on February 1st. They beat Eastern obviously in a really ugly one that we all remember. It was ew, it was gross. Eastern only scored 60 points in that one. But they've lost 5 of their last 6 games. They're currently in 6th place, but a loss would really make it tough for them to get that opening round bye. Just taking a peek at their schedule, they lost after the Eastern game, beating Eastern Washington. They lost to Idaho. They lost to Northern Colorado in a close one, but then they lost to NAU. They lost to Montana. They beat Portland State, but then they lost to Sac State as well. 3 of those are the bottom 3 teams in the Big Sky right now in Sac State, Northern Arizona, and Idaho. So, they're a team that has been weird. Like, sometimes they just, for whatever reason, catch fire and just absolutely don't just beat teams. But I don't know if they don't really have that offensive firepower to keep up with a lot of teams. Besides this weird Portland State game where they scored 91 points, they haven't really reached 80 in many games. I guess in the Northern Colorado game they did here, but they're not a team that scores over about 70 to 75 points a game very often. They're pretty average, at least in conference wise. They've been kind of a strange, just really weird team this year that you just don't know what to expect. But obviously, I'm going to hit on this game before I forget. This one hurt. This one was gross. This was Eastern's first loss in Big Sky play to Montana State in the brick, and it was just no bueno. It was not fun. Eastern played horrible. Only 25 first half points was just absolutely disgusting. We still had a chance towards the end of this one and just couldn't make the plays we needed to make. The scoring was just not good. We only shot something like 30. I guess we shot 45%. We just couldn't knock down a 3, man. 2 for 18 and 18 turnovers was kind of what killed us in this one, and that's what Montana State does. They force a ton of turnovers. That's kind of been their story all year. I think they kind of get outmatched by a lot of teams, but they play really tough, aggressive defense that force a lot of mistakes, which has kind of been their strength. But their weakness is something that we're kind of strong at in terms of the half court offense, playing very they don't have the size that Eastern has, and that's for sure. In their last game, Robert Ford, this team runs through Robert Ford and we'll get more into that here in just a second. Like I said, they're a team that lost a lot of pieces, but they run through Robert Ford. And if it wasn't for a guy like Dylan Jones, and if Montana State was or Dylan Jones and St. Thomas, I should say, and Coward too. And if Montana State was playing a little bit better basketball this year, Robert Ford would be getting serious looks at a Big Sky MVP type season because he's having a ridiculous season. We'll get more into his individual numbers a little bit later, but looking at some of the team statistics for them, they're very middle of the pack in almost everything except for a few notable categories. Middle of the pack in offense and defense, and overall scoring margin, they're right there at sixth. Field goal percentages, they're right there in the middle. 3-point percentage is one of their weird ones. They're number one in the conference with 3-point percentage, which is kind of strange because they're not like a team known for being excellent shooters. They don't shoot the ball a ton. They've made 114 3-pointers, but like when you look at Eastern at 124 and Montana at 120, like it's not super impressive. There's other teams. I guess there's other teams down in the 80s and 90s, so they're right around the middle of the pack in 3-pointers made, but they made them at a pretty high clip. 0.001 percentage points above Eastern Washington in that category. And then rebounding. Rebounding, they've been bad. They've been ninth in rebound margin this year, and even in that last game, I believe Eastern Washington still out rebounded them 36. Yeah, oh no, Montana State out rebounded us. That's wow, that's kind of embarrassing that I look at that. But anyways, they've been a bottom tier team in rebound margin. They're ninth out of 10 teams in rebound margin, and that's a huge advantage going towards Eastern Washington. If we can rebound the ball well, it's gonna be tough for them to really do much. Then these are the two categories that are scary. They are number 3 in the conference of turnover margin. They force about 13 turnovers a game on average, and then they turn the ball over about 12 times a game, almost too. But they're number 1 in the conference in steals. And like I was saying, they're a team that thrives on, you know, they're a team that thrives on creating chaos with ball pressure, and we saw that firsthand in that last Eastern Washington game where we just turned the ball over a crap ton. 18 times was just insane. It's a really weird matchup for Eastern Washington. They steal the ball a ton and they put a lot of pressure on our ball handlers. So it would be very nice to have another ball handler back in Mason Williams if he's good to go. Kind of sounded like he was gonna be good to go for the NAU game, and then he wasn't, and then I don't know exactly what's going on with that situation. So I'm really hoping he'll be back for both the Montana and the Montana State games. Would be awesome. It really would help with that whole SAG situation that's going on right now. But it would be very nice to have another ball handler in the backcourt because I wouldn't be too surprised if they try to full court press us all the game. Just because in the half court, like they're likely going to give up a lot of easy looks to us just because we have the horses to be able to beat them. Like they don't have the size to match up with us inside. The biggest player on their team that plays regular minutes, they have a couple like 6'10" guys that really only play maybe 10 minutes a game. Like they don't play a ton, but they're the biggest player that really contributes is 6'8" Tyler Patterson, who's actually listed as a guard, which is kind of strange. A guy from Mount Si here in Washington, actually. But their primary big is Brandon Walker, and he's 6'7". So I would really, really like to see us, 1, limit the turnovers, and 2, just dump that ball inside because we're going to be able to dominate inside. We were able to in the last matchup. We really were able to. It was just getting the ball inside when we had the chance, and we just didn't have the chance that often. Looking at them more individually, this team runs through Robert Ford, as I was saying. Robert Ford has been like a guy that could be up there with the MVP category if it wasn't for, 1, Montana State being not that good, and 2, Dylan Jones not existing, because I think he's going to get it no matter what the numbers say. He's an Idaho State transfer up to Montana State, which is kind of a weird path, but this dude is 6 foot and leads the conference in leads the conference in steals. Then he's fourth in the conference in scoring, third in the conference in rebounding at 6 foot, third in the conference in rebounding, and then he is eighth in field goal percentage and sixth in 3 pointers per game. He's got a lot of top 10 stats with his name on there. He does it all for them. He's a slasher, he's a shooter, he's a rebounder, he's a defender. He really does everything for them. He's averaging 16 points, 7.8 rebounds, which is nuts for a 6 foot guard, and then 3 assists per game. But he's also averaging almost 3 steals a game. 2.7 steals a game is nuts. He has 41 steals on the conference season. He's been a guy that can just pickpocket guys like no other. That's a little concerning. Especially if he ends up matched up with someone not named Ellis Magnuson, it's gonna be a little bit scary bringing that ball up the court, because they have the opportunity to probably be they're the better team in the backcourt, in my opinion, in terms of like breaking presses and stuff. I think their defense is going to be better than what our offense can break right now. But we'll see. Um, their next kind of main contributor is forward Brandon Walker. He's a really good inside shooter and inside scorer from the post. He's 6'7", so he's not an extremely tall big inside, but he's very athletic and he's very strong. He's able to score the ball pretty efficiently. He's shooting the ball almost 60%. He's averaging what is it, 15.3 points per game, just shy of 5 rebounds and an assist a game. He's also another guy. He's 10 steals on the conference season. That's going to be a common theme for this team. So many steals, man. Brian Goroki is kind of another good one for them. He's averaging just shy of 12 points. He's also 4.7 rebounds. Just he doesn't really average an assist, but again, 7 block shots on the year, 10 steals. Tough, aggressive defense for them. Goroki's kind of a long wing guy. He's 6'6". He's listed as a forward, but if I'm remembering right, he's kind of a inside out forward that likes to shoot a three every once in a while, even though he's not shooting it too efficiently, only 31% on the year, but he has shot 55 threes. That's good enough for, I believe, third on his team in terms of three-pointers attempted. Next up is Eddie Turner. He's kind of their pass first guard on the team, even though he's not like a guy with outstanding assist numbers, but he is averaging 3.2 assists per game, which is good enough for 10th in the conference. He's a good player, a good kind of 3-and-D guy. Not 3-and-D, excuse me. He's kind of a pass and defense guy. Ellis Magnuson-esque-ish, but not as good as a passer as Ellis, in my opinion. He's, again, 24 steals on the conference season. That's good enough for 2-ish a game. Just absolutely awesome stuff in terms of forcing turnovers for this team. Tyler Patterson, that 6'8" guard that I was mentioning earlier, he's the tallest guy that they start, but he's averaging 7 points. He's 40% from three. He's also, 10 or 18 steals this year. Like, so many guys on their team are in double digit steal numbers in 15 games, which is just nuts. That's most of their big contributors. Lot's a good player for them, averaging just under 6 points a game, but he's pretty an average guy. He's their team leader in block shots at 10 this year. But other than that, like they don't really have the size inside. I guess John Olmstead is probably he's their main like big guy. He's a 6'10" forward, but he really doesn't play much. He's only played 29 minutes this year. So like they don't have the size to match up with Eastern Washington inside, which kind of makes the keys to this one weird. Eastern has to take care of the ball. I think that's got to be priority number one this week in this game. Has to be Eastern taking care of the ball. And fingers crossed, we have already clinched a regular season title by this time. But as we saw last year, and as we saw this year, Montana State's a team that can come out of nowhere and beat you, even at home. And we got to be able to. I don't want to end the year on another loss to Montana State. I want to beat Montana State at home. I don't like the Montana schools that much, so I want to beat the Montana schools. we have to limit these turnovers because I think turnovers is kind of their only path to winning, and that's what they got in that last game. They got 18 turnovers, scored a bunch of points off those turnovers, and it really allowed them to stay in that game and build their leads. Um, I'm gonna look up 16 points off turnovers for Montana State in that last matchup, which is just it's deadly, man. You can't allow that. Once we get the ball into the half court, I really like our chances. I think we really outmatch these guys in almost every category when it comes to that half court offense. And they're really their strength is more the perimeter defense, forcing steals, getting hands and passing lanes and stuff like that. If we can get the ball to the post, I don't see them having the talent to keep up with us on in the half court, and they didn't in that last matchup. We still shot the ball 45%, 56% in the second half, and we were just dumping that ball inside and playing very good basketball inside. We just we couldn't get enough shots on the outside. So the answer, not the answer, but the what we need to focus on is we gotta first of all inside out offense. We got to be able to score the ball inside. But then I'd really like to see one or two guys have solid games from the outside, and that's going to be tough against this Montana State team because they do play some pretty good 3-point defense typically. But if we could get a guy like, I don't know, an Eric Strupp, a Coward, a Kyman to hit a couple of threes, especially early, because in the last game, man, they just couldn't hit anything in terms of threes. I think Kyman was the only one that hit a three. Coward hit a three in that one, but Kyman hit his three early, if I'm remembering right. I could be remembering wrong there. My bad. But it would be very nice to hit a couple of threes early and build a little bit of a lead that we can hopefully take care of and really depend on our big guys to take over in this one. I'd love to see a guy like Price, a guy like Eric Strupp, even Watts and Casey Jones. When it comes to kind of slashing and being opportunistic inside, I just would really like to see those guys play well in this one and take advantage of having kind of good matchups overall. I mean, they have some good talented defensive wing guys, but I like our chances when it comes to the half court in this one. And the SAG guys just need to hit a shot to open things up. Again, that's gonna be a reoccurring theme. Is our SAG guys just need to hit a shot or two to kind of open things up and hopefully, if they do hit those shots, a Hartman, a Watts, an Ellis Magnuson, one or two shots in a game, I think it'll open things up and make it a lot more open inside for our big guys to dominate. And without further ado, I'm gonna pause here and we will talk about the Eagle men's matchup with Sacramento State on the road on Monday. Okay, and for Sac State, I'm going to be completely honest. I've watched maybe a game and a half of Sac State basketball all year. Sac State's a team that I really haven't cared about at all in terms of basketball. They're 3-13 right now, dead last in the Big Sky. 3-13. They play at a crappy arena, and I don't particularly like watching teams that are really bad. I really am not worried about this game, but Sac State has been a little bit frisky. This one, I mean, personally, I'm just going on the fly in this one. I have my tabs open, and we're just going to kind of talk as we go. They're dead last of the Big Sky play, as I said. 3-13, 2 games behind ninth place Idaho at 5-10. 3-13 for Sac State in conference, and they've just been bad, man. This last matchup, Eastern dominated them 87-61. Eastern shot 53% in this one, 55.6% from three. Eric Strupp had a couple of threes in this one. This isn't the game. Ethan Price had a really big game in this one. 19 points for Coward as well, 16 for Casey Jones, 13 for Kyman. I didn't even get to watch this one very much. I kind of saw the score and just checked out because this was right before I kind of took over EPH. So, it, this team isn't good. Like I don't know. There's not a ton to break down here. They just aren't really good. If you look at their Big Sky stats, they're dead last in offense per game. They're weirdly like number one in defense per game in terms of points scored. But I think that's kind of just because they don't shoot the ball, to be completely honest. Um, they're only averaging 60 points a game, and they're giving up 68 a game. They're still in a negative eight point differential, even though they're the number one defense in the league. Um, they're dead last in team field goal percentage, dead last in opponent field goal percentage against. Yeah, they just aren't good. Ninth in 3 point percentage, 3 pointers made. They're in 10th in 3 point against. They just they're just bad guys. Uh, Rebound margin. Oh, they're number one in rebound margin, and I don't particularly know why that is, but this isn't to like knock on the players or anything. I just don't know anything about Sac State basketball, to be completely honest. I know they have one guy with a funky haircut, and that's really about it. Bottom of the conference in assist to turnover ratio, turnover margin, just kind of a dumpster fire this year, to be completely honest with you. Just looking at um, their team stats, uh, Z Harmoda has been their leading scorer at 11 points a game, and Duncan Powell's averaging just shy of 11. Duncan Powell is that guy with the funky haircut that I was talking about. If Hamoda's the guy I'm thinking of, he has had a few big games, but he's nothing incredible. He has 21 steals on the season, which is uh, pretty impressive. Austin Patterson averaging 9 points for them on 41% or 44% from the field, 41% from three, shooting the 3 pointer relatively efficiently there. Um, Other than that, there really isn't much to point out for them. Uh, I believe these guys actually beat Weber State, which is really funny. Here's their schedule. They had a little two-game win streak here, beating Weber State and Idaho State, both at home at the Nest. Really weird team. I think they've only won 3 games all year, and 2 of them came right there. But they're coming off their third win of the year versus Montana State. So, heck, who knows? Maybe they're hot, man. I really don't know anything about these guys, but um, I think I mean, no disrespect to Sac State, but man, I just don't see a world where they win this game. And now that I've said that, shit, it's probably going to be a real nail biter. But I'm not gonna really break this one down too much. I'm really just hoping for Eastern to play their game. I'm hoping we have this thing locked up by now. We pick off one of the Montana State or Montana games, this weekend, and we can hopefully uh, seal our first place in the Big Sky regular season, seal that ring, and seal the 1 seed going into Big Sky tournament play. Seal that all up, and you know, hey, I want to sweep to finish this thing out, the final 3 games. But if we drop one, I'd rather drop one of the Montana State games than this one. But hopefully by that point we have this thing locked up. Um, I really don't have much analysis for Sac State at all, man. I haven't watched them at all, and so I don't wanna act like an expert. They're just not a good offensive team at all. They had 5 straight games this season where they didn't score 60 points, which is just insane. But yeah, I think that's all about I got for Sac State here. It's a game. It's a weird Monday night game on the road, which has kind of been where they've surprised some teams at home, but they did beat Montana State on the road. They've been a little frisky with a lot of teams just playing good defense. Almost a lot of their games have been pretty close. They played Weber State close again, 53-58 in Ogden earlier this February. They only lost to Northern Colorado by 5 points. So, hey, it could be a pretty competitive game. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not gonna break this one down anymore. I'm gonna let this one just be up to the basketball gods. I'm expecting Eastern Washington to be able to pull this one out if they can play their game. If they could shoot with any efficiency at all, they should be able to win this one. And hopefully they can limit the turnovers as well, because It'd just be nice to see. Hopefully, this is a little bit of a confidence game going into the Boise tournament. But yeah, that's all we got for the men's games this weekend, guys, and then we will move on to the women's games here. All right, folks, and on to the women's side of things. Full transparency, I'm going to be a bit underprepared for the women's side of things. I'm running very low on time today, and I want to get this out by Wednesday morning for you guys to listen to. So we're going to kind of go on the women's things kind of on the fly here, just clicking through some tabs. I know these teams relatively well, but, we got to get this thing done here pretty quick. Coming in here, we have, hold up, sharing screen. Eastern is traveling to number 3 Montana on Thursday. This is going to be a pretty big game. Eastern has to pretty much win out to guarantee a spot. I believe if they win 2 of these games, they would be able to clinch 2 of the last 3. They would be able to clinch the 1 seed, but I'm not totally sure on the math of that. I don't remember. But big game coming up against number 3 Montana. Montana's a great team. They're probably one of the hotter teams in the Big Sky right now, besides Eastern. Their last loss came to NAU, I believe. They lost to NAU at home on February 8th, and they've beat Northern Colorado, Montana State, Sac State, Portland State since. They played a real close one with Sac State, who's one of the bottom teams in the Big Sky right now. But big one on Thursday on the road. This is going to be a tough battle. Looking at the last game that these two played in Cheney, Eastern won this one by 5, 61-56, in a bit of a defensive battle. Eastern played some lights out defense in this one, held Montana, who is one of the best offensive teams in the conference, to just 26% from 3. They particularly shoot the 3 at a very high rate. You see there, they had their spur to 44% in the third quarter. But other than that, Eastern was able to hold them to a relatively low percentage. And I mean, I'll give them 2 for 11. I'll give them 2 for 7. Really, they're a team that barrages you from the outside typically, and holding a team like Montana, who's one of the top offenses in the league. Eastern has played 3 of the top offenses in the league back to back. NAU, Northern Colorado, and Montana. And it would be absolutely awesome to be able to sweep these 3. This one has a lot of seeding implications on the line here. Looking just at some team stats, like I said, Montana's a real good offensive team, and they're kind of been a middle of the pack defensive team. They're number 2 in total offense, number 2 in scoring margin so far this year. NAU dipped a lot with their last couple of losses. In terms of field goal percentage, again, Montana number 2 in the conference. Defensively, they're about 5 in the conference, kind of middle of the pack. My kind of comparison, if you watch men's basketball more for this Montana Grizz team, is Northern Colorado, a really good offensive team, but their defense can be lacking at times. That's kind of been their story. Really good 3-point shooting team. They're number 1 in 3-point field goal percentage. They shoot about 40% from 3, which is ridiculous. But looking at their defense again, they're number 4. They've been 4 through 7 on most of their defensive categories. They're number 1 in 3-point field goals made, though, in Big Sky play. They shoot the free throws, middle of the pack. Rebounding wise, they're they're top 3 and number 1 in rebound margin. Wow, they're number 3 in combined team rebounds. So I was a little bit led away by that stat, but number 1 in rebound margin, which kind of makes sense with they're having one of the best bigs in the league in Carmen G. Feller. Just looking turnovers, kind of middle of the pack in turnover margin, but number 1 in assists to turnover margin, which is interesting. They average 15 assists per game. Just looking at some of the missed stats, they're number 1 in block shots, which is kind of interesting. They are a pretty long, tall team. They got a couple of Spokane and Washington natives on their team as well. Number 2 in assists per game, just behind NAU. Number 1 in attendance, which is, hey, good for them, but typical Montana things. But I know they have a number of leaders here. They have Carmen G. Feller is number 6 in total scoring. She's also up there in rebounding, I believe. Danny Barch, I think it is, leading the conference at rebounding for Montana. Carmen G. Feller up there in terms of field goal percentage, 3-point field goal percentage. You got 2 Montana Lady Grizz up there, and 3-point field goals per game. Number 1 is Maggie Epson. I've kind of called her MEM because I don't like saying the whole name, but her, Gina Markson, and Danny Barch are all up there. Matt Koenig as well. They all are up there in terms of 3-point shooting, and they all shoot the three well. Really, anyone from 1 through 5 can shoot the three on their team. They're up there in assists as well. Gina Markson, number 1 in assist to turnover ratio in the league. Number 3 in assists per game. Looking up, number 1 in block shots is Carmen G. Feller on the season, and then they're a team that actually rotates a lot, so they don't have anyone really high up here. Danny Barch up there, number 11 in terms of minutes, but they're very, very, very good offensive team, very good shooting team, and they have G. Feller in the middle there that can really take over in terms of 2-point field goal percentage and leaning on the post. Looking at their individual stats here, G. Feller leads the team in scoring with 14 points per game. She could make a three if it's open, but she's not really a primary 3-point shooter. Really good inside player. She's a Colfax native, really close here to Moscow, Idaho, where I'm living at currently. She shoots the ball very efficiently, 48% shooter. Really good free throw shooter, really good rebounder, averaging 6 rebounds a game, almost 1.6 assists, 21 block shots in the year. Very nice season for her. One of the best bigs in the league. Maggie Epson Miller McGraw, averaging 11.6 points per game. She had 1.7 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 4 block shots, 14 steals. She's up there in their 3-pointer. She's a really good 3-point shooter. 42% on the year. They have 6 players shooting over 40% from 3, which is kind of ridiculous. Maggie having shooting 40 for 96 on the year from 3, just really impressive stuff. Matt Koenig, she has 60 for 150 from 3, shooting 40%, averaging 11 points, 60 field made on the year. 3.6 rebounds a game, 15 steals, or 3.6 assists per game, 15 steals. She's having a solid season. Danny Barch is one that's impressive. She's scoring 11 points a game. She is shooting 42% from 3. She's averaging 11 rebounds a game. Wow. And 2.6 assists per game. I can't remember what number she is, but she's a really good player. And then Gina Markson averaging almost 11 points per game. I believe she's an Idaho transfer, but she's one of the top players in the league in assists and an assist to turnover ratio, averaging 4 assists per game. They're solid offensive team. I don't know if they have the defense capabilities exactly, but it's a really fun matchup. And again, it's one of the best offenses versus one of the best defenses, kind of like that NAU game. So it'll be really fun to see if this Eagle defense can come back and play another awesome defensive game and hold this Montana team under 60. It would be really tough to do that, but man, I'm hoping they can. I'm hoping they can take away G. Feller in the post, because it's going to be tough if G. Feller can just take over all game in the post with Jacinta Buckley out. But we will see how Eastern kind of counters her. First things first, though, you got to stop their 3-point shooting, and Eastern's been really good at that all year. If I'm remembering right, Eastern's one of the top teams at 3-point. Yep, number 1 in 3-point percentage against. Teams shoot less than 30% from 3 against them. Number 1 team in the conference, and they've given up the least amount of field goal makes from 3 all year. So I like that matchup for Eastern Washington. I think if Eastern could take away the 3, they should have a chance, but they need to be consistent on offense, and that's kind of what we saw in this game earlier this year. They scored their 15 points per quarter through 3, and then they kind of had their cold spell in the fourth quarter, but they kind of made up for that by getting 18 and 17 in those second and third quarters, which hey, they played good defense. They scored enough, and that's how they win games. I think Eastern should be able to do that again, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough road trip on the road to Montana, probably the most hostile environment these ladies will play in all year. So, um, we'll see how it goes. I think Eastern should be able to pull this one out, but it could be a tough matchup. But we will see, man. Moving on to the Montana State game, I'm gonna cut here for just a second, open my tabs, and then we'll get to it. Okay, looking at this Montana State matchup, Montana State is coming in. They're in fourth place right now. They've been kind of an up and down team. Sometimes they've been very streaky where they go on like 3-game losing streak, then win a game, then lose a game, then 4-game win streak, then lose a game, win a game. That's kind of been their MO. They've lost 3 of their last 4, I believe. I'm gonna pull up their schedule really quick. They've lost 3 of their last 4 games, but they were coming off of a 5-game win streak, and Eastern being one of the teams in that win streak, with that heartbreaking loss in Cheney at the start of February. Man, Montana State got us bad earlier this month, but I loved our chances at getting a sweep over Montana State this weekend. Eastern Washington is traveling down to Bozeman, and Montana State plays very well at Bozeman, but I like our chances in this one. Looking at the last matchup again, it was that heartbreaker where we just couldn't score enough points in the fourth quarter, and man, this one was brutal. It felt like a game that Eastern was the better team all game, but they just man, they made a play at the end, and I'm gonna be honest, they kind of got the benefit of from a questionable call that gave them the lead down the stretch, and man, it was tough, but it's okay. We flushed it. That's in the past. I really like Eastern's chances to beat Montana State. I think Eastern is a way better team than Montana State, personally. You know, looking at their conference stats, they're 8th in total offense, they're 3rd in total defense. Scoring margin wise, they're right there at 6th. Not nothing insane. They've been kind of like not like an exceptionally good team, but they just kind of figure out how to win some games and they figure out how to lose some games. Middle of the pack and field goal percentage against, and 8th and field goal percentage for, more of a defensive focused team. Dead last at 3-point field goal percentage on the year, as well as dead last in 3-point field goals made. So very inside oriented team, it looks like. Oopsies. Looking at rebounding, rebound margin, they're down there in the bottom 3, which is something you like to see as an Eastern fan. I really like our chances. They're number 2 in turnover margin, though, which is interesting. They force about 18 turnovers a game. Man, that is really interesting. How many turnovers did they forced? They forced 16 turnovers in the last matchup with Eastern Washington. I like Eastern's chances of limiting those turnovers. Eastern's really been limiting the turnovers these last few weeks. Versus some awesome opponents at NAU and Northern Colorado. Montana State's probably more of the better. I think Montana State might be one of the best defensive teams we'll see all year at this point, but it should be an interesting matchup. I think the last game it was kind of weird because both teams played decently offensively, and normally they don't play too decently offensively. Looking at their just team stats, they got 2 players averaging right around 12, 13 points a game, Madison Hall and Mara Dykstra. Dykstra had a huge game in that last one, scoring 20. 6 rebounds a game for Dykstra, 2.5 assists. Madison Hall averaging just shy of 13, as well as 3 rebounds and just under an assist a game. They don't have anything insanely impressive box score wise, but they're a good team. They're a good team that can beat you any night. Looks like Caitlin Lamardo averaging just shy of 7 rebounds a game. Hey, they beat the Grizz earlier this year, and they've lost but they've lost 3 of the last 5, so they're kind of a streaky team, but they play well at home. Uh, so, it'll be interesting to see. Their last win was Sac State, who is one of the worst teams in the conference right now, but they've been playing pretty good basketball. But they lost to Portland State last Thursday, which is, dead last in the Big Sky. Montana, they got beat pretty bad by Montana and Missoula. They lost to NAU pretty bad, but then they kind of spanked on Northern Colorado. They beat Idaho. So, it's an interesting matchup, that's for sure. And but I think Eastern Washington should be able to pull this one out relatively convincingly. But hey, time will tell. Looking forward to the Sac State game. This one is a little bit more interesting, kind of to me, which seems weird because Sac State is in ninth out of they're ninth place out of 10 teams, but they've been kind of frisky lately. Pulling up their stats, I'm gonna cut really quick while I can pull. So Sac State is ninth out of 10 teams in the conference, and they really haven't won a ton of games. But for whatever reason, they just play everyone tough, kind of like their men's team. Looking at their schedule, like their last 3 games they've lost, but they absolutely dominated Northern Arizona, who's just been on an absolute cold snap for whatever reason. But then they lost to Northern Colorado by just 6 points, gave them a good game in Greeley, just got beat by Montana, really tough game, and then they just barely got beat by Montana State as well. So, I think they're definitely a team that could come up and beat you. They're not a team with 4-12 talent like their record says. They definitely have some really good players. Looking at kind of some of their players, Beth Versteeg, she's a foreign player who's really talented for them. She's one of the top field goal attempt people in the entire league and doesn't shoot particularly efficiently, but she scores 14 points a game. She has 35 steals on the year as well. Summa Hansen has 13 points a game, averaging 13 points a game, I should say, and almost 9 rebounds, as well as just under an assist a game, 6 assists a game for Ben Verstick, which is really impressive stuff. I think they're a lot more talented than people are giving them a credit for. I think it's Solape Amusan. I'm sorry for butchering names. 10.4 points per game. She's averaging just shy of 5 rebounds and half an assist a game. But they steal the ball a lot. They force a lot of steals. They're a little bit of a frisky team. If you don't play your game, they can come and beat you. With that being said, though, uh, Eastern Washington absolutely destroyed these guys the last time they played, held them to just 33 points. And I definitely think there's an opportunity for this to happen again. Ali Alexander had 23 points in that last one. J.D. Martin had 13, one of her better offensive nights. But they just were bad, man. They held them to just 6 assists on the entire game, and that's kind of been Sac State. They're very talented. I think they're a pretty talented team. They just don't pass the ball or run like an offense that really gets them easy looks, to be honest. So they shoot a pretty poor percentage typically. Held them to 23% in that last one, 1 for 16 from 3 for 6%. Just defensive domination, and I think that's definitely possible again. But they are kind of a frisky team that can beat you if you're not playing well. They're 6th in total offense. They are 8th in total defense. Kind of pretty bottom 3 in pretty much everything. And they're one of the I guess they're 4th in assists per game, but like I said, just kind of a frisky team that's interesting a little bit, even though they're one of the bottom teams. The Montana State and Sac State, I don't really know what to do with just because they're so up and down. So I mean, I of course have faith that Eastern should be able to beat both of them and continue the defensive dominance and you know win this thing and go get that 1 seed in the Big Sky regular season championship. But we'll see. I think Montana State's probably the toughest, like matchup wise, one of the tougher matchups for this Eagle team, but Montana is too, obviously. but I think their strength plays into our strength well. So, I think all three of these games could be good games, but I have faith Eastern should be able to pull out that Sac State game relatively handedly. I apologize to you ladies for this preview being kind of short. I am out of time and I gotta go. So thank you guys so much for watching. I think that's all I got for Eagles Power Hour this for this preview segment. I believe I'm gonna try to get the recap up next week on Monday or Tuesday, and then I'm off on spring break. So hopefully you guys get a little bit more content coming, but we'll see if I have much time for that. I'm not gonna be home, so we will see what's happening. Thank you guys so much for watching. Get your butts to Reese Thursday and Saturday to come see the Montana schools. Come see potentially a clinching of a regular season Big Sky Conference title for the men's team. Come to Reese on Monday. Get there. Go see Jamie Loetta for senior day. All these seniors, they work their butts off to play well. Jamie Loetta has given so much to this program, and even though she's only played a couple of years, um, it very it would be very good for those girls to have a very nice crowd for their last one in Reese of the year heading into Big Sky tournament play. We will have a Big Sky tournament preview episode coming up next week. Hopefully, we will know kind of where we're looking in the bracket. I'm not sure if we're going to do episodes in between games necessarily because I just don't really have the time for that right now. But, you know, we will see. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter if to follow along and just kind of get our live tweeting analysis, if you will, as we go along into the Big Sky tournament next in a couple of weeks. Man, we're there. There's only 3 games left. It's kind of sad, but it's crazy. But you know what that means? Spring ball's coming up, and we have some coaching changes to hit on here soon too. So thank you guys for listening. This has been Eagles Power Hour. I am Patrick Frakes, and we'll see you guys later. Go Eagles.